Hello, everyone, for OneWrestling.com. This is Bill Apter. Welcome back to the audio version of the Apter Chat. And the guy that I'm talking to right now couldn't find one brand new picture of himself to send me, and I don't have a brand new picture of him to send me. Matt Stryker, welcome to the Apter Chat.
How are you? Thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
Well, it's great. We go a long way back. How many years have you been in the wrestling business now?
I think it's 15 or 16, and to make you feel old, I used to watch you when I would go to the Garden with my dad to take pictures at ringside, you and George Napolitano.
Yeah.
And I also always read wrestling magazines, an avid reader of wrestling magazines, and I think it's a shame that the wrestling magazine business, the medium, is now gone as we move into the technological age.
It is, when I was growing up, I used to, and by the way, you did make me feel old, so don't worry about it. I try and stay.
I'll try again later.
All right, I try and stay ageless, but you're so right about the wrestling magazine genre. Other than the WWE magazine and Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is now a bi-monthly, the collection of magazines was like. Did you collect them as well?
I still currently sit on over 2,100 wrestling magazines in a storage unit in College Point. My stepmother used to scream at my father to get them out of the house because they took up so much room. I put them in storage. I still have them. They're like old newspapers.
So you're saying that you currently sit on them, so you, at this point, are bigger than Andre when he was alive.
Probably not, and I don't think I ever will be, but I hear what you're saying.
But yeah, the first magazine I ever collected when I was a kid was Famous Monsters of Filmland, and then I found Wrestling Review by Stanley Weston, who was my mentor, and it was so much fun collecting magazines. But now everything again is going digital, which is why I'm here on OneWrestling.com.
Yeah, I often wonder. I mean, I was a collector as a kid. I collected wrestling figures. I collected hockey jerseys, baseball hats, and wrestling magazines. And I just wonder now, how will people collect things? Like, will their memories all be saved on a chip or a disc? I mean, I kind of liked the impressive look of boxes lined up of inside wrestling and Pro Wrestling Illustrated and the wrestler, and that visual is all gone.
Yeah, well, now people will be like, oh, I'm a 2 gig. Oh, really? I'm a 6 gig.
Right.
That's exactly. But you gotta move on with the times. When you were growing up, because you were a broadcaster at WWE, when you were growing up, who was the broadcaster for you on like any of the wrestling programs?
Well, I remember Vince himself. I also always hear Lord Alfred Hayes. For some reason, that's the voice that comes into my mind. I remember Pat Patterson as a commentator as well. It was always interesting to me. On the other side of the world, the NWAs and stuff, there was always going to be Shivani Crockett. There's Lance Russell, I believe, wasn't Mid-Atlantic, but and just some other names.
Well, you can't leave out Gordon Soley, of course.
No, not at all. And for me as a kid, Wednesday and Saturday nights at 11:30 on UHF, you had to find it. It was channel 68, and you need to kind of position the television to the Saturn's rings and the moons of Jupiter. And Gordon would commentate Florida wrestling. And it was a grainy picture, but that sound, that voice, as low as I had to have it turned on, it still just resonated so much.
I had it. I used to have to take that UHF antenna. And, it's funny that people, if you talk to a 20-year-old today, he doesn't know what a UHF antenna is. Try going into Best Buy and asking for a cassette recorder. They have them there, but none of the salespeople even know what it is. So how did, you started off in the business being trained by our good friend Johnny Rodz, the unpredictable Johnny Rodz, one of the best trainers in the world, and you trained to be a wrestler and you wind up going to WWE and you get into the role of a broadcaster. How did that actually happen that you became a broadcaster there?
It's a great story, and my hat goes off to Joey Styles. I believe it was Taz or Mick Foley had departed the company, and the next week in one of the creative meetings on the 100 Things to Do Today, number 82 was find a commentary replacement. Joey Styles mentioned my name. I believe that Vince and the producer of our television product were at least okay with it. I think really it was just to move on to what the bigger problem, the next thing was going to be. So they threw me in that chair, and I mean, good. I tried not to be a pain in their neck.
Yeah, and it really really clicked. And now during all the time that you were there as a broadcaster, this is a question I don't think anyone has asked you. Who were the guys that you interviewed that you deep inside kept saying, "God, I'd love to wrestle with this guy in the ring"? Who were like the top guys you would have liked to been there with?
There are three guys that jump to my mind, actually four now, that I can distinctly recall times interviewing them or staying next to them while they were talking. I felt that that chemistry. You can just feel it when it's like when someone says when they meet their wife for the first time, they just knew, or their best friend. You just know that you get on well with this person. One person is Randy Orton. I always just felt such I guess, a good energy that I felt I could be creative within.
Right.
CM Punk is another.
Right.
John Cena, because John's wit and his overall directive really is very underrated. John's a sharp guy, and you don't see a lot of his adult personality, but even his PG personality is very sharp-witted. And the last one, I'm proud to say, is Mr. McMahon. I only interviewed him a handful of times, but every time we interacted with a camera on, I always felt that metronome click, and we were in the pocket. At least I think. For all I know, we could have felt discord, but for me, those are the four that jump out.
Did you ever wrestle CM Punk on the indie circuit?
Punk and I fought each other all the time. I think I actually even own a win over CM Punk, to be honest with you. So even a broken clock is right twice a day. But yeah.
Wow. Now, what did you ever think that he would achieve the height in WWE that he did, knowing that, people like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, let's talk about him too, generally were not looked at the WWE back then as being anyone they would bring into that top level tier?
Well, I had the prior knowledge of Punk and Bryan because I knew them on the independent scene. I knew exactly what these guys could do. It's like coming up in the minor leagues with Yasweel Puig. You know this guy can hit, and you know he's going to make it. I knew for the Punk question, Punk's always been the kind of guy that does things his own way, and that's a lot of respect. And up at WWE, one thing that really gets a lot of reverence is to have, pardon the expression, have balls, and to go out and be confident. And while Punk wasn't the kind of guy that, start a fight with everyone, he's still the kind of guy that stuck to his convictions and his morals. And if nothing else, you have to respect that. So, yeah, I expected great things for Punk.
But you see, WWE has always been about the box office, really, the product translating into dollars. And I just remember years ago there were guys around like CM Punk, not as good as, but they wouldn't even look at them because of their size, their stature, and everything. And they were always considered indie wrestlers. So I'm so glad that you have that view. So you're no longer with the WWE. Your contract has expired. So tell us what happens to Matt Striker now.
Well, before that, it's interesting what you just said about it seemed like smaller guys or non-prototypical guys weren't getting opportunities. They really were, because if you look at it, Chris Candido was up in WWE for quite some time. Spike Dudley would excel in WWE, and Brian Pillman was amazing. Even a guy like Bret Hart wasn't a tall, big body guy. So I think a lot of people jump on that bandwagon when if you go back in history and look, there are plenty of quote-unquote small guys, and I point to Bruno Sammartino, that excelled. So that's me defending the small guys.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, but I'm going back from the magazine days when everybody in that company was pretty much a super heavyweight. Yeah, that's where I was coming from.
What's next for Matt Striker?
Wait, I just asked you what's next for Matt Striker.
I was repeating to get myself back on track. It's interesting because, of course, there are a lot of avenues I want to explore, but I was thinking about this the other day, and this may be cheesy, but I was talking to my mom the other day. It was my birthday, and
Happy birthday!
Thanks, buddy. I think maybe it's time to work on some relationships in my life. Maybe it's time for me to learn how to, communicate and let people in and establish meaningful relationships in my life, whether it be with family or with my girlfriend or even with friends. I've always had a very small world, and the Beatles said it's a fool that plays it cool by making his world a little smaller, and I've always done that for the safety of it. So maybe what's next is I try to grow emotionally and try to establish relationships and be what a human being, I'm putting my fingers up in quotes, by the way, is supposed to be. I don't know.
What about going back to teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad was great to tell me to get my degree, and I did. I had it, and there's going to be a test or two here that I have to take, or something out a class I'll have to do. But absolutely, and that's something I can do anywhere in the world.
That's
So
great. Now, you recently also, not soon after your contract expired, have accepted a position as a broadcaster with Brooklyn's FWE promotion.
yeah, that was I think that was just a one-time thing. I think they were nice enough to reach out to me because the news broke on Thursday. They happened to have a show on Friday, so I came down there to lend my voice, and then saw Sandman show up. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to punch anyone in the face, let it be this guy. So I jumped in the ring and punched Hack in the face, and then here comes Tommy Dreamer, and that was the end of that. But I don't know, what the relationship will be. It was just nice of them to step up, and it was nice of me to see, who's coming up the ladder.
Yeah, and you did you do some broadcasting for them that night?
Yeah, we did some commentary on the show, and yeah.
Okay. All right. So we want to thank you, Matt Stryker, and wish you, as they say, best of luck. And we'd like to feel free to keep in touch with you and update the fans on what you're doing, because you certainly have a legion of fans. I see just by your number on Twitter how many followers you have. Where can people get in touch with you?
You can hit up the Twitter at Matt_Stryker_. And for bookings, you can email FOR mattstryker@gmail. And before we go, I gotta say, I think that I'm lucky to be in a position where I'm not a veteran or an old timer brother, and I won't be for some time. But I'm also not a greenhorn brother. Through all of this, it was guys like you and Napolitano and Stu Sachs and all these guys that got me hooked on this and got a generation of people hooked on this. It was through your eye that we saw the colors and the stories and the pageantry. So for me, I want to thank you. I'm glad that, wow, I'm talking to Bill Apter. I know we're friends.
Thank you.
But little Matthew K from Bayside, you're Bill Apter. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Bill Apter came from Maspeth, Queens, so we're, I was little Billy Apter there. But thank you very much. And now I have to ask you, I got to ask you the question, since you read the magazines. Were you a fan of the late Dan Shockett and then Eddie Elner? Did you like the heels?
Come on, I think you know the answer, of course.
Right.
Antagonists and rule breakers are always going to have a special place in my world. Absolutely, yes.
All right. Matt Stryker here with Bill Apter on the Apter Chat.